It's strange how the most mundane spaces in life, like the break room at a mid-sized office, can become the stage for poetic justice. I was new at the job, just trying to blend in, figuring out the rhythms of the place. It wasn't some polished corporate dream. The environment was disorganized. People floated through hallways with half-finished thoughts, and nobody ever seemed to know whose responsibility was whose. But there was one shared space that everyone treated like neutral ground: the kitchen. A full kitchen, mind you, fridge, freezer, even an oven. No posted rules, no labels, no system. It was understood some food was communal, some was clearly personal. And I didn't like leaving anything to interpretation. I brought my own lunch every day and kept it in a small floral lunch bag, not just because it was cute, but because it made it unmistakably mine, or so I thought. Now, I'm from New York originally, and while I'd been living in rural North Carolina long enough to blend in a little, there were still unspoken differences in how things worked. One of those things: people here are polite to a fault. They don't call things out. So when food started going missing from the fridge, no one said a word. Not a whisper to me, at least. People were suffering in silence, tolerating their lunches, vanishing like it was just part of the deal. And I, oblivious, went about my business. Until one day, when what was supposed to be a quiet lunch break turned into the most ridiculous and oddly satisfying moment of my professional life. That morning, I had packed leftover coripalo, a dish I had made the night before, laced, with enough spice to make a grown man cry. I like it spicy, not just spicy, but so hot it makes ear ears burn kind of spicy. It was fiery, even by my standards. I'd gone overboard with the chilies, even told myself I might tone it down next. But that day, I figured I'd power through it. It was my food, my lunch, my problem. I tucked it away in the fridge, like I always did, and went about my morning. Noon rolled around, and I headed into the break room, expecting a microwave, a quiet chair, and a break from the chaos. Instead, I walked into a scene straight out of a bad sitcom. A crowd had gathered. People stood in a circle, murmuring. In the center of it all was Brent. Now, let me tell you about Brent. He was a man who filled up a room just by entering it. In his late 50s, over 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, always cracking jokes that landed somewhere between outdated and offensive. He carried himself like he was the king of the office, the kind of guy who believed in the good old days, and reminded you of it at least once a week. He called women darlin', bragged about his high school football days, and liked to make a show of his masculinity at every opportunity. That day, however, Brent was far from his usual self. He was red in the face, sweating profusely, clutching his chest. The HR lady was hovering next to him, taking his blood pressure, murmuring instructions about deep breathing. I froze, thinking he might be having a heart attack. I walked over, concerned, and before I could say a word, Brent turned to me and exploded. "You tried to poison me," he shouted, his voice trembling with equal parts rage and fear. For a moment, my brain couldn't compute the words. Poison? What? Me? He was pointing at me like I'd handed him a loaded gun instead of lunch. I blinked, trying to find context, and then it hit me. The lunch, my lunch. He had eaten it. He had taken my floral lunch bag, helped himself to the spicy coripalo, and now, because it had kicked his system into full-blown panic mode, he was trying to shift the blame. The realization hit like a slap. Everyone turned to look at me. Some looked confused, some amused, some horrified. I calmly asked, Did you eat the lunch in the floral bag? Brent's eyes flared, and he shouted, Yeah. And what the hell was in that? Gasoline? I tried not to laugh, honestly. But inside, something curled with satisfaction. That was mine, I said, slowly, quietly, firmly. Silence. For a beat, no one said a thing. Then someone chuckled. A few others snorted. And Brent's face went from red to crimson. You could almost see the humiliation settle into his skin. He just outed himself as the office food thief loudly, publicly, and with zero grace. Suddenly, all the mystery. Lunches that had vanished over the weeks had a culprit. All the yogurt cups, Tupperware meals, sandwiches people didn't need an investigation anymore. They had their man. And I didn't have to say a word. I just stood there, all 5 feet of me, looking up at this towering man who had just confessed to stealing and eating someone else's food, and then had the gall to complain it was too spicy. The irony was delicious. Brent tried to backpedal, of course. He muttered something about how people should label their food better. Someone in the back said, You mean like not stealing floral lunch bags? Another burst of laughter. Brent stormed out, probably to down a gallon of milk or call his doctor. The HR lady gave me a sympathetic smile and said, Maybe next time keep it mild. I just shrugged. Wasn't meant for sharing. After that day, everything changed. People started labeling their food more clearly, sure. But more than that, they started talking. Quiet whispers turned into real conversations. Brent had been helping himself to lunches for months. Everyone had a story. My salad disappeared. My leftover pasta vanished. I swore I packed a burrito. Brent had been taking what wasn't his, assuming no one would notice, or maybe that no one would dare say anything. But karma has a funny way of speaking up when people don't. Sometimes it's not a grand confrontation. Sometimes it's just someone eating the wrong dish and paying the price. Brent became the office joke, not because he was embarrassed, but because of how dramatic the fallout had been. He stopped using the break room altogether. Ate alone at his desk. No more macho strutting. No more loud storytelling. Just quiet. Chewing and a lot of bottled water. I continued bringing my lunch like always, only now I added a little extra kick. Just in case. Not that I needed to. Brent never touched anyone's food again. He couldn't. The fear of the spice haunted him. People joked about it for months. Someone even brought in ghost pepper chips and left them out with a sign that read, For Brent only. I laughed, but I never rubbed it in. I didn't have to. The universe had already done that for me. And I'll be honest with you, there was something deeply satisfying about the way it all unfolded. I didn't set a trap. Didn't confront him. Didn't write a complaint. All I did was bring my lunch and let nature and spice do its work. If you've ever been walked over, ever had someone take advantage of you because you were quiet, because you didn't make a scene, because you didn't fight back the way they expected, you'll understand why this moment meant more than just a ruined meal. It was about standing up without standing up. About letting the truth come out in the most unexpected, hilarious way.